Put your faith in the light.
Hello guys, welcome to another one of my videos. This is Lightblade, and well guys, in this one let's talk about these changes that just came in like an hour ago. So Blizzard is finally going to nerf the God comp. This is like Guardian Druid, Augmentation Evoker, Fire Mage, Shadow Priest, and Holy Paladin. So on top of that, they're going to be buffing some underperforming specs, and one of these specs is Retribution Balance. Yes, we're getting some pretty decent buffs, I think. I'm going to explain the magnitude of the buffs when we get to that part. But first, let's talk about the nerfs on the God comp. And why does this matter, you know, if you're a red paladin? Because, well, if you're pugging, you really have a hard time getting in groups like on keys over level 21. This is, like, people say that the meta doesn't matter at that level, but it does matter because the meta seeps down, like from the high keys to the lower keys. Then people start like looking at other classes like useless, and they start just looking at mages, priests, and augmentation. That's the only thing they're going to take in their pugs, even though maybe like taking a very good red pally would have been better than just taking a whatever Shadow Priest flavor of the month player. People don't care, they're just gonna take that flavor of the month player because they think it's better. So the meta does matter at the lower end of keys, but mostly to just get in those keys. So let's look at the nerfs. Okay, first off we got Guardian Druid. So Guardian Druid is getting a nerf on its trash damage and on its raise damage, both by 8%. So on my understanding of Guardian Druids, I play with one friend that does, they do get a lot of survivability for doing damage. So if you reduce their damage, you're also reducing their healing and their shielding in that case, because they take a talent to make their raise and trash damage shield themselves as well. So this is going to be affecting them in both areas. I think it's a pretty decent nerf they can have, you know, they're just such a dominant tank. Okay, now let's go to evokers. Okay, on the evoker side, so Augmentation Evoker is adding a significant amount of damage to their party while also providing strong utility and survivability. I think this is the problem. They just give too much damage for how easy they make surviving other mechanics, you know, because they give so much shielding and tankiness to other classes. Like they give 20% versatility to two people in the group. If you put that on your tank or on a weak DPS, you know, let's say you just make them unkillable. That's 10% damage reduction on top of the shielding and damage they provide. It's just so strong. For this week, we'd like to reduce some of the damage contribution from the buffs to help them bring more in line to other classes. So what they're doing? They're going to reduce the breath of eons accumulate damage by 10%. It's going to do only 10% instead of 15% of what it was before. So this is their, I think, 2-minute cooldown. It's the one where they like fly over the mobs, put a debuff, and then people like do damage, and they accumulate damage and then it explodes. So that's no longer going to be 15%, it's only going to be 10%. I guess it's a pretty decent nerf. It's this is one of the cooldowns that lined up with some of those like meta classes and make them really strong. So yeah, it's a pretty decent nerf for Augmentation Evokers. And then Fate's Mirror proc has been reduced to 10%. And well, this was kind of whatever. It did very little damage, all things considered, you know. I guess it's a decent nerf, you know. It's 5% less proc rate on this thing. Normally you could have up to 2 Fate's Mirror on 2 people, you know, 2 targets of your prisons. So I guess, yeah, it's a pretty decent nerf. Evokers still just give too much survivability and utility, but I guess you could like leave that survivability and utility fine as long as you nerf their damage. I think, yeah, this is, I guess, the correct approach on Blizzard's part. Now let's go to the next class. Okay, so next up on the chopping block we have mages. So 2 flavor of mages are getting nerfed, Fire and Frost. Fire being the one that is the dominant and the God comp, you know. So Fire Mage is getting decreased Flame Strike damage by 10%, Flame Pass damage decreased by 10%, Conflagration damage decreased by 10%, Meteor damage decreased by 10%, Phoenix Flames damage decreased by 10%, and Living Bomb damage decreased by 10%. So this is a really big hit to Fire Mages. I think they're still going to be doing more damage than other classes on Mythic Plus content, but it's not going to be by much this time, you know, because like the last time we saw Fire Mages, they were doing like up to 20% more damage than any other class in Mythic Plus content. They were just such a dominant force in this type of content, you know, in combination with the Augmentation Evoker and the Shadow Priest PI. They were just unstoppable machines of damage. This might lower their damage a bit, but I still think they're going to be fine, you know. They're not going to be like super uber broken, but they're still going to be a pretty strong class. I think the nerfs are guaranteed, and maybe they should even nerf them a bit more, I guess. Okay, now let's go to the Frost Mage. So Frost Mage has Comet Storm damage decreased by 6%, Blizzard damage decreased by 8%, and Frozen Orb damage decreased by 8%. So Frost Mages were actually doing pretty well. Same as Fire Mages, but the combination of Fire Mage and Shadow Priest on top of Augmentation Debacle was just so much better than Frost, you know. Okay, now let's go to the Holy Paladin changes. Okay, so our Paladin brethren, let's see what they got nerfed on. So Holy, all healing reduced by 5%. The Light's protection now reduces damage taken by 10%, it was 16. Overflowing Light now creates an absorb shield for 30% of glimmers of lights. Over healing was 50%. That's big because like damage prevention of shields is better than healing. Tears Deliverance now increases healing taken from Holy Light, Flash of Light, and Holy Shock by 15% was 25. That's a 10% healing nerf on that thing. Blessing of Summer now causes attacks to deal 20% additional damage instead of 30. That's 10% damage on... a lot of people really wanted that thing to get nerfed, you know. Blessing of Summer just was a cause of like the multiplicative damage stacking of the God comp. Fading Light now creates an absorb shield for 3% of the healing or damage done for Holy Power Generators, was 10%. Yeah, this thing was absurdly strong for Retribution Paladins, so I assume it was also absurdly strong for Holy Paladins, and the fact that it was kept at 10% for so long, it's like crazy, you know. I remember Fading Light for Red Paladins was so damn like broken. You could like stand in mechanics with Fading Light shields and you didn't take any damage because you were just so damn tanky. The next one is Righteous Judgment now has a 30% chance to activate Consecration, was 50%. This will also change in PvP combat, and Consecration damage reduced by 25%. This will also affect PvP combat. So yeah, Consecration is a lot of their damage, you know, you just drop it and it does uncapped AoE damage on everything, you know. It's really easy to just drop and leave it do its damage, you know. So yeah, Holy Paladins had it coming. They were just too damn strong. A lot of people said that instead of nerfing Holy Paladins, they could like bring other healers to the Holy Pally level, but that would require like a really big rehaul to all healers, because it's not only like that Holy Pally's healed a lot, it's that their healing way is like so different than others, you know. They're really good spot healers, they have really short healing cooldowns that they're just perfect for Mythic Plus content, you know. And they would have to make the other DPS healers do the same thing, which I don't think it's feasible like now in the middle of the season. So yeah, I guess the only answer was to nerf Holy Pallies. Okay, now let's go to the important changes. Retribution Paladins are getting buffs. Yay, yes. Okay, so what are the buffs? Divine Storm damage increased by 8%, that's pretty big. Wake of Ashes damage increased by 10%, that's also pretty big. And Consecration damage increased by 12%. So this can be big or small depending on what dungeon you're doing. Consecration does pretty good damage on places with like high count of mobs, and does pretty garbage damage on places with low count of mobs. So how much damage actually overall is this increase on ours? So let's go to Simcraft. Okay guys, so here we are at the simulation. So this is a full run of Uldaman 23 on Tyrannical. This is going to help us gauge how much actual damage overall we're going to be getting from those class tuning numbers, you know. So let's do first Divine Storm. Divine Storm does 21.3% damage on simulation. If we do the 8% buff on this, we're gonna get that Divine Storm is going to do an extra 1.7% damage with the buffs. After that, we got Wake of Ashes. It does 12% damage on simulation. If you do 10% of that, it's going to give you a 1.2 increased damage after the buffs. And finally, we got the Consecration buff, which is 2.9 from the Consecrations dropped on your Blade of Justice, and 1% extra from the Consecrations dropped from Searing Light. So if we add those two up and round them up, we got a 4% damage from Consecration. If we do the 12% buff on that, we're going to get that Consecration is going to be doing around 0.5% more damage. So adding all those numbers up, we get a grand total of 3.4% extra damage that Retributions are going to be doing overall more after the buffs on Tuesday, which is a pretty substantial gain, I think. So notice that most of these buffs are only going to be to our AoE damage. You know, we kind of struggle a bit on single target damage, not gonna lie. But hey, we take all the damage buffs that we can get, you know. We're already pretty good at AoE, so this is just going to make us like even stronger on those. So 45 weeks are probably going to be our favorite weeks to do stuff, because we do a lot of like that AoE juicy damage, you know. So overall, I'm really happy about these changes. I'm really happy about the buffs. And well, now let's go back to the class tuning changes. Okay, let's talk about the last spec that got nerfs from the God comp, and this is Shadow Priest. So, first of all, they're hitting them on the healing with Vampiric Embrace nerfs. It now only heals by 40% of single target Shadow spell instead of 50%. And Sand Lane now reduces the cooldown of Vampiric Embrace by 30 seconds instead of 45 seconds that was before. So yeah, Shadow Priest just gave so much healing on, especially like important parts of fights. Just pop Vampiric Embrace to help the healer up and top the group up, you know. So yeah, they just had too much utility. This on top of all the other things they bring. They have like a Mind Suit. They also have like Mass Dispel that is like mandatory on most dungeons this season. So yeah, I think this nerf is pretty guaranteed. They're even getting some extra damage nerfs, you know. They're getting Vampiric Touch damage reduced by 20%, Shadow Ward Pain damage reduced by 15%, Shadow Apparition damage reduced by 15%, and healing from Vampiric Embrace is no longer reduced by 20% in PvP combat. Okay, that's just a PvP change, but they are getting pretty big damage nerfs, you know. I think they could solve this by just making Priest not able to give PI to other people. I think Shadow Priest shouldn't give PI to anyone else than themselves, you know. I think it's just a pretty dumb thing they added this expansion, you know. They're actually having to balance around that, you know, and that's only going to make the Shadow Priests like feel bad because their spec is balanced around they giving PI to other guys. So I think they should just remove that and just don't bring those types of abilities back for DPS players, you know. And no, I don't think any DPS player likes to buff other people, unless it's like a group buff or something like that. Hopefully with these nerfs the pug scene feels better next week, because well, this comp was just so dominant that it was so hard to get invites to anything. And well guys, that's going to be all for the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, subscribe to the channel and leave a like on the video. Thanks for watching everyone.